What if fearlessness wasn't just a mindset? What if it was survival? We look back at the Vikings. We see them as fearless warriors, sailing through icy seas, charging into battle without a second thought. Their sagas speak of bravery, gods and monsters, a thirst for glory that seems almost superhuman. We imagine them born from the storm, ice in their veins. But the foundation of their legendary strength might be simpler and far more primal. It might have been something they ate, the food they scraped from the harsh, unforgiving lands they called home. This is not a story of gods, but of guts, grit, and the daily grind of survival. This journey will take us back 1,000 years. We will stand on the shores of a frozen fjord, feeling the bite of the wind. We will sail on a longship, the salt spray on our faces, the rhythmic creak of the oars in our ears. We will huddle by the warmth of a cooking fire inside a smoky longhouse, smelling the stew and the roasting meat. We are going to explore the world of the Vikings not just through their battles, but through their bellies. We will uncover what it truly took to live, to fight, and to conquer in the Viking Age. The answer is written in their bones, buried in their rubbish heaps, and preserved in the very soil of their farms. We will break down the very essence of their existence. First, we will explore the brutal, beautiful environment that shaped every aspect of their lives, from the food they could grow to the enemies they would face. Then, we will walk through their daily routines of hunting, fishing, farming, and raiding, understanding how survival was a constant, demanding job. We will then uncover their diet in detail, based on what archaeological evidence shows us. The fish they pulled from the sea, the animals they hunted in the forests, and the hearty grains they coaxed from the rocky soil. It was a diet born of necessity, but it forged extraordinary results. Finally, we will connect the food on their plates to the power in their limbs and the fire in their hearts. We will examine the biological impact of their nutrition, explaining how it built bodies capable of incredible endurance, strength, and resistance to the cold. We will also explore the psychological edge this gave them, linking their survival-focused life to their famed fearlessness. Along the way, we will uncover surprising facts and forgotten habits. We will look at what lessons their ancient way of life might hold for us today. What if the secret to conquering your world is hidden in what you eat? Let's find out. To understand the Viking, you must first understand their world. It was not a gentle land. It was a realm sculpted by ice and fire, a place of stark, breathtaking beauty and brutal, unforgiving hardship. Imagine the coast of Scandinavia 1,000 years ago. Long, deep fjords cut through the land like scars left by ancient giants. Towering mountains, their peaks often shrouded in mist and snow, loomed over narrow strips of habitable coastline. The sea was everything. It was a highway, a pantry, and a constant, churning presence that dictated the rhythms of life and death. The air itself was different, clean, sharp, and cold, carrying the scent of salt, pine, and wet stone. The climate was a relentless master. Winters were long, dark, and profoundly cold. The sun would hang low in the sky for just a few precious hours, casting long, ghostly shadows across landscapes blanketed in deep snow. Archaeological evidence from settlement sites reveals just how challenging this was. For months on end, the world was frozen solid. Rivers and fjords could freeze over, locking communities in ice. The struggle for warmth was constant, a daily battle against the encroaching chill. Survival in this season depended entirely on what had been gathered, hunted, and preserved during the fleeting weeks of summer. A poor harvest or a failed hunt was not an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. Summer, when it finally arrived, was a frantic explosion of life. The sun would barely dip below the horizon, creating the ethereal twilight of the midnight sun. This period of near-constant daylight triggered an urgent need to work. There was a very short window for growing crops, for haymaking to feed the livestock through the winter, and for repairing homes and ships battered by the frozen months. This compressed, intense period of activity defined the Viking year. Every moment of warmth and light had to be exploited to its fullest. It was a race against time, a desperate effort to stockpile resources before the inevitable return of the long, cold darkness. This environment forged a particular kind of people. It demanded resilience, forethought, and an intimate, unsentimental knowledge of the natural world. There was no room for complacency. Nature was not an idyllic backdrop. It was an active participant in their lives, a force to be respected, appeased, and constantly negotiated with. It bred a pragmatism that is often overlooked in the sagas. Every decision, from where to build a farm to when to mend a fishing net, was weighed against the harsh realities of their world. This land of ice and fire did not just house the Vikings, it created them, shaping their bodies, their communities, and their very spirit. Life in the Viking Age was a cycle, a rhythm of survival, dictated by the seasons and the land itself. The core of their society was the farm, or garter. These were not vast, sprawling estates, but small, self-sufficient holdings, often isolated, nested in a sheltered valley, along a protective fjord. Here, the Viking was not a helmeted warrior, but a farmer, a herder, a fisherman. Archaeological evidence from farm sites across Scandinavia paints a clear picture of this mixed subsistence strategy. They were masters of diversification because to rely on a single source of food was to invite disaster. Their survival depended on a complex and laborious dance with the land and sea. Livestock was central to this existence, a living, breathing bank of resources. Historical records and bone finds at settlement sites show they kept cattle, sheep-goats, pigs, chickens. These animals were incredibly precious. Cattle, particularly, were a sign of wealth, but they were demanding, requiring huge amounts of fodder to survive the long winter. They provided milk, which was turned into cheese, and a soured, yogurt-like food called skyr. Sheep and goats were hardier, able to graze in more rugged terrain, and provided meat, milk, and wool used for clothing sales and blankets. Nothing was wasted. Alongside animal husbandry was the constant toil of agriculture. The soil was often thin and rocky, and the growing season was perilously short. The main crops, as confirmed by analysis of ancient pollen and preserved grains, were hardy cereals, barley, rye, oats. These grains were the backbone of their carbohydrate intake. They were ground into flour, baked as an unleavened flatbread on hot stones, or boiled into a thick, sustaining porridge. Growing these crops was backbreaking work, done with simple iron-tipped plows, pulled by oxen or by the farmers themselves. A successful harvest meant security. A failure meant hunger. But the farm was only half the story. The sea and the surrounding wilderness offered a bounty that could mean the difference between starving and thriving. Fishing was not a leisure activity. It was a fundamental part of the economy. Men would venture out in small boats, using lines and nets to catch cod, herring, salmon. On land, hunting provided a vital supplement of meat and furs. Archaeological digs have unearthed the bones of elk, reindeer, even bears in Viking middens. Foraging for berries, nuts, and edible plants in the short summer months added crucial vitamins to their diet. This relentless, year-round pursuit of food was the unwritten saga of daily Viking life. The popular image of the Viking is of a warrior, axe in hand, leaping from a longship onto a foreign shore. While this is not wrong, it is incomplete. For most, the role of warrior was a seasonal occupation, a violent interruption to a life defined by hard physical labor. Their daily survival was constant, low-intensity training. Felling trees with an axe, building a home, clearing a field, built powerful shoulders and a strong core. Rowing a fishing boat for hours against a stubborn tide forged endurance in the back and arms. Hauling hay, plowing fields, wrestling livestock were conditioning that built the Viking body. This exertion was a community affair. The sagas give glimpses of a world held together by mutual obligation. Building a longship required specialized skills and coordinated effort. Raising a longhouse, harvesting the fields, defending the community. This created strong social bonds and a shared sense of fate. A man's worth was measured not just by courage in battle, but by reliability and strength as a neighbor. Then came the raiding. For many, it was not pure chaos. It was an economic strategy. When the spring thaw came and crops were planted, young men without land or inheritance saw opportunity. The longship let them bypass harsh terrain and strike wealthier, less defended coastal communities in Britain, Ireland, Francia. Archaeological finds, coins, jewelry, religious artifacts in Scandinavian graves show the raid's success. It was high risk, high reward, bringing wealth, prestige, and land to survivors. The seasonal shift from farmer to fighter defined the Viking Age. Mending nets, herding sheep, could in weeks become part of a feared war party. This duality reveals their mindset. They were not a standing army. They were farmers, fishermen, and traders using violence as a tool. The longship crew was a microcosm, bound by oaths and a shared goal, each man's strength and reliability essential for the group's survival. Labor prepared them, and raiding promised reward. The story of what Vikings ate begins not on land, but in the cold, dark waters of the North Atlantic. For a people living on rugged coastlines with limited agricultural land, the sea was their most reliable and abundant source of food. It was a vast, sprawling larder that never truly closed for winter. Archaeological evidence from countless coastal settlements confirms this dependence. Middens are crammed with fish bones, showing what was on the menu. The sheer volume suggests fish wasn't just a supplement. For many, it was the foundation of their existence, the primary source of protein and life-sustaining fats. The kings of the Viking catch were cod and herring. These species swarmed in enormous shoals, a predictable, plentiful target. Historical sources and digs show vast fleets and the tools of their trade. Iron hooks, stone sinkers, fragments of nets. The Vikings were strategic fishermen, tracking seasonal movements. They rode small fairings into choppy seas, used long lines with multiple hooks, hauled cod from the depths, or deployed drift nets to capture herring. Beyond staples, the sea offered more: salmon, trout. In shallow waters they gathered mussels, oysters, and other shellfish, easy sources of minerals and protein. Marine mammals were on the menu too. Whaling was rare, but seals were hunted regularly. Meat was eaten, blubber rendered into oil, oil for lamps and for preserving wood, using every part of the animal. The marine diet's importance can't be overstated. Fats from oily fish gave slow-burning energy for hard labor and calories to stay warm in a brutal climate. This high-fat, high-protein diet powered the Viking world. It built strong bodies, supplied essential omega-3s for brain health and reduced inflammation, and gave resilience a grain diet couldn't. The bounty of the northern seas wasn't just food, it was fuel for conquest and survival, the secret weapon in every fisherman's net. While the sea provided the baseline of their diet, meat from the land was a symbol of wealth and a source of immense satisfaction. The sagas are filled with descriptions of great feasts where roasted meat is the centerpiece, a sign of a chieftain's power and generosity. On the Viking farm, livestock were walking assets. As we've seen, they were kept for milk and wool, but their ultimate purpose was to provide meat. Animal bone assemblages found at archaeological sites show that cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs were all on the menu. However, these animals were far too valuable to be slaughtered casually. A cow would likely be kept for its milk for many years before being eaten in old age, its meat tough, but still precious. Younger animals, particularly pigs and lambs, were more likely to be eaten. Pigs were efficient foragers, able to be fattened up quickly, and were often slaughtered in the autumn to avoid the cost of feeding them through the harsh winter. This provided a crucial supply of fresh meat and fat, just as the cold was setting in. The butchery evidence found on bones shows that the Vikings were skilled and methodical in how they processed a carcass. They used sharp knives and axes to strip every last piece of meat, and they would split the larger bones, like the femur, to get at the rich, calorie-dense marrow inside. This practice highlights their deep-seated understanding of nutrition and their refusal to waste anything. Beyond the farmstead lay the wilderness, the Utmark, which offered another source of high-quality protein for those with the skill and courage to take it. Hunting was an important supplementary activity, especially in the more remote inland settlements of Scandinavia. The bones of wild animals are a common feature in Viking Age rubbish pits. They hunted large game like elk and reindeer. These hunts were challenging and dangerous affairs, requiring immense skill with a bow and spear. Smaller game like hares, ptarmigan, and grouse were also trapped and eaten, adding welcome variety to the diet. Perhaps the most formidable prey was the bear. Hunting a bear was an act of supreme bravery, and success would have brought enormous prestige to the hunter. It was a battle against one of the most powerful predators in their world. The meat would have been a rare prize, and the hide a valuable trophy and a source of incredible warmth. This combination of domesticated and wild meat gave the Vikings access to a consistent supply of the iron and protein necessary for building strong muscles and healthy blood. It was this power, drawn from the hoof and the hunt, that was unleashed in the fury of a shield wall. We began this journey by asking a simple question. What if fearlessness wasn't just a mindset, but something that could be fed? Throughout this exploration of the Viking world, we saw this idea as a living reality. The Norsemen's legendary strength wasn't born from magic or myth. It came from the harsh, beautiful landscape they called home, and the pragmatic, nutrient-dense diet they scraped from it. Their food reflected their environment, unforgiving and demanding, but rewarding to those with the strength and ingenuity to harvest it. Their diet was the bedrock of their civilization, a lesson in human adaptation that still resonates. The key was an unglamorous synergy between lifestyle and nutrition. Their bodies were machines forged by necessity. A high-fat diet, rich in omega-3s from the sea, provided slow-burning fuel for endurance and a natural defense against the cold. Immense quantities of protein from fish, meat, and dairy built and repaired powerful muscles. Hearty grains gave quick-release energy for battle. A perfect nutritional storm created a strong, resilient, durable physique, capable of grinding labor and of ferocious combat. We learn, food connects directly to function. The Vikings ate for performance, not pleasure. Every meal was a strategic deposit into the survival bank. The blubber of a seal, the marrow of a bone, the soured milk in a bowl. These were not delicacies, but calculated investments in warmth and strength. Seeing food as fuel is a powerful takeaway. It shows that what we eat impacts what we can do. This isn't a call to eat stockfish and blubber. It's an inspiration to view nutrition pragmatically. Their diet supported their ambitions, to row oceans and face the unknown. A diet aligned with demands can unlock hidden potential. True strength is holistic, built from the inside out, one nourishing meal at a time. The long ship has sailed, but its lessons remain. The Viking warrior has long been a figure of fascination, a symbol of raw power and untamed spirit. Yet, as we have seen, this image is incomplete. Beneath the horned helmet of myth lies the determined face of a farmer, a fisherman, a survivor. Their fearlessness was not an absence of fear, but the product of supreme confidence. Confidence forged in the fires of a life that demanded constant competence. Their diet provided the physical foundation for this confidence, building bodies that could withstand cold, heal from injury, and perform incredible feats of strength and endurance. This physical resilience created a powerful psychological feedback loop. A strong body houses a confident mind. The rituals of feasting and sharing food transformed the act of eating into a powerful communal bond. In the face of scarcity, abundance was a celebration of collective strength, binding men to their leaders and to each other with oaths of loyalty. This brotherhood, this deep-seated trust in the man standing next to you in the shield wall, was perhaps the greatest antidote to fear. They understood that courage is contagious and that shared hardship, followed by shared reward, creates a bond stronger than any single warrior's fear. So, what did the Vikings eat to become fearless warriors? They ate the sea. They ate the sky. They ate the forest. They ate the field. They consumed the salty, fatty fish that gave them endurance. They ate the protein from hoof and hide that built their muscles. They ate the hearty grains that fueled their fury. They ate the fermented foods that fortified their health from within. But more than anything, they ate what their world provided, and in doing so, they mastered it. Their diet was the ultimate expression of their relationship with a harsh environment. A relationship built on respect, resourcefulness, and a relentless will to not just survive, but to thrive and conquer. The story of the Viking diet is the story of how a people turned the very challenges of their existence into the sources of their strength. It is a powerful reminder that we are, in the most fundamental way, what we eat. The echo of the North is not just in the sagas or the buried hoards of silver. It is in this timeless principle. The courage to face the freezing spray of the North Sea, to charge onto a hostile shore, to build a life in an unforgiving land. That courage was real, and it was built, one bite at a time, from the very world they sought to conquer. Survival was their nourishment, and it tasted like victory.